Have you tried everything under the sun to be a happy mom? And yet it feels like no matter how many deep breaths, trips outside, or I am statements that you read over, you still find yourself feeling burned out and drained. This was how I felt for the first 3 years of motherhood. And honestly, I thought there was something wrong with me. Today, I'm sharing 9 things that we must unlearn in motherhood to become a happy mom. Welcome to the Slowish Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Alexis. I'm a mama to 2 little girls and a parenting coach. I help moms who are burned out, tired, and stressed feel happy and confident so they can enjoy a little more ease in their daily life. If you want to unlearn parenting and awaken your innate design, then you're in the right place. Alrighty, let's get into today's episode. Hello, you guys, and welcome back to another episode. Today, we're talking about things that you need to unlearn to become a happy mom. I think so often I've focused on habits and things that we can be doing, which is really helpful in your journey. I find that with my coaching clients that if we don't have actionable things, tangible even things that we can be doing to help get us out of our cycle, we're kind of just stuck there. And I think the next part of this, because I've been doing podcast episodes on habits for happy moms, and it's been resonating with so many of you. And then I tapped into kind of this old-fashioned way of parenting, of kind of just being innately within ourselves, trusting our intuition. But then I think that next step is needing to unlearn some of the beliefs. At least that was the case in my journey. You know, I found that my perfectionism, which caused a lot of the expectations, which led to the rage, which, by the way, if you are struggling with rage, this might be why you may have some beliefs that are just deep rooted in there. And if you want to start your rage-free journey, I have 14 of my favorite calming tools completely free. You can just comment rage below and I will send them to you. It's about an 8-minute video and I just walk you through how to use these rage calming tools. But anyway, I believe that when we can unlearn and unravel these beliefs around motherhood, that we can begin to loosen our grip and we actually find peace and ease and contentment and understanding also for why we are the way we are. And for me, there was a lot of self-empathy that came from that as well, which was a huge part of this journey. You know, I'm not a perfect mom. I don't do everything perfectly. I might be a parent coach. You know, I might help other moms to become better moms, but that doesn't mean that I'm perfect at it. And that was something I had to really come to acceptance of, you know, that I am going to lose my cool. I am going to get angry sometimes. I am going to be unhappy. This is true. But here is where the magic is, right? I get to use these experiences as not only learning lessons for me and for my child, but also for lessons for all of you. And so that's just the coolest part of my job, right? And so today, I really want to help you to unsee and uncover, I guess, some of the areas that I think need some clarity and also need some kind of breaking down and what's the word I'm looking for? I want to say what is the word? I can't think of it. Well, whatever. You guys, I think, get what I'm trying to say. So pull out a journal. I encourage you to journal through this episode. If you're watching this while you're cleaning or doing whatever, maybe come back to this episode, save it for later, add it to your watch later list, and then journal along with it with the things that are triggering for you or the things that raise curiosity, because that is where you are going to be able to really tap into the areas that need work. And for me, journaling is where I did a lot of my inner work, I went through therapy and coaching, and then journaling, all of it kind of married together helped me to come to where I'm at today. So the very first thing that I think we need to unlearn as moms to be happy is this idea of perfection. And I kind of already hinted towards this earlier, but perfection was a huge part of my journey and a part of my story. I was a type A perfectionist. I didn't do something unless I thought I could be perfect at it. I would set my expectations so high for myself that they were unreachable. And I would just get let down every single time that I did something. And so I had to understand that these standards that were made partly were the way I was parented, and the other part was society. It was the way I viewed things through social media and how other people were portraying their lives, right? And so what I found myself doing is kind of doing the comparison trap. And I felt like I needed to do it all and say it all and be able to be super mom. And when I couldn't be super mom, I would get angry and I would get frustrated with myself. And then I would expect more and more and more and more and more. And so I needed to understand that behind the camera of either Instagram or YouTube or whatever influencer I was into at the time, they had a life that I didn't understand was going on. I was only seeing just a very minuscule part of their life. And so I've now learned that many of these YouTubers have help. They have nannies, they have babysitters, mother's helpers, aunts, cousins, grandmas who help to watch their kids. I mean, I myself, to be able to record these videos when my mother-in-law can watch my kids, that's when I'm recording these. Or a day like today when my husband is able to watch the kids and we don't have something going on. I'm sitting here recording a podcast episode, but I don't have all this extra time. And I think that I needed to really understand that these moms who had 9 kids and they were making the sourdough and the, sauerkraut and every snack from scratch. Like, that was something I really strived for. And I had recently, either it just came out or it's going to come out, but I talked about idolizing homemaking. And I just think that I had this idea in my mind of who I wanted to be, and I was just so stuck in that. So how do we unravel ourselves from that? I think that we need to be realistic and know, like I'm telling you right now, a lot of moms here on YouTube that you're watching, like the moms that have 9 kids and they're doing all the homemaking stuff, they have older kids. Those older kids have chores. They're doing most of the dishes. Like, of course that mom has time for that, right? Of course a mom who has a nanny, or of course a mom whose husband also works from home, like has more time and availability to do these things than I do, right? I think being very realistic and having open, honest conversations with even like your closest friends, asking them what life's like for them. I think that we want to all portray this beautifully perfect life, but it's just untrue. It's just not. So I think that when we can open up the conversation, and I think that when we can actually see into what a situation is actually like, it's not nearly as perfect as we'd like to think it is. And there's also reasons why it can be that way and why there's availability and capacity for that mother to handle all of those things. She's not just super mom, if that makes sense. So that was a huge realization for me. Okay, number 2 is going to be unlearning that happiness is not the goal. Okay, I know you came here for happiness, but I feel like we get so caught up on this feeling of happiness. I have done a complete video on how to be content in motherhood, where this is where I like break down everything about how contentment is just, that's the goal. Happiness is not. We want to be content. We want to have ease. We want to ride the waves of motherhood just with this peace and ease. Like, that's how we want it to be. But striving for always being at the top of the mountain, always happy, is not life. And I've learned that the hard way with my second daughter having a heart defect. When she was born, it was like my whole world was crushed. I thought I'd never be happy again. And here I am 2.5 years later, like truly, like, I am happy, right? But that doesn't mean that every moment of my day is happy and that I'm stuck in this cycle of wanting to be happy. So for me, when I was in coaching school, I learned about feelings, and I learned their role and what they were meant for. And I figured out that feelings and emotions aren't good and bad. And I grew up going to a Christian school. So very much like anger was bad, rage obviously would be bad. Like all of those things were bad emotions. And being sad was bad. And then you've got on the other end of the spectrum being happy and grateful and thankful and joyful and all those happy emotions over here. And that was the goal, right? To be there always. And so when I was able to deconstruct that and say these feelings are just sharing more about my inner world, more about what's going on, it's giving me clues and signs and kind of like symptoms for what my inner world is like, I found myself feeling less frustrated. And so I really needed to unlearn that there was good and bad feelings, and rather that there were feelings that just led me to understand better what was going on for me, how my life was going, maybe an area where I needed to grow in, or maybe an area where, I needed to be more curious, have more understanding. And so that was really a huge mindset shift for me when it came to feelings and understanding that happiness was never the goal. Okay, the third thing is a child's behavior is to make you mad. We need to unlearn this. A child is never behaving in a certain way on purpose to make you mad. And I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, okay, yeah, but my teenager totally does this to tick me off. Or my 2-year-old totally does this because she knows better. But when we learn in nonviolent communication about the how feelings are linked to needs, and we understand that a feeling is just a communication of either a met need or an unmet need. So again, you've got those good feelings and those bad feelings, right? But if we look at them in the light of unmet needs and met needs, all of our child's behaviors are a symptom for an unmet need. And when we look at it in that light, maybe their unmet need is attention. Maybe they are needing attention. And so yes, they're going to be bugging us. They're going to be up our butts. They're going to be constantly yelling or hitting, but it makes sense. And so now it's, instead of yelling at them and, punishing them for their bad behavior, for making us mad, instead we are getting on their level. We are having a conversation about what's going on and figuring out a way to get that need met. There we go. That's how I want to say that. So yeah, getting that need met for them. And then what's going to happen is, naturally, the whole issue isn't going to last as long. It's going to be a quicker turnaround time. And as we go through life, we're not going to have as many hiccups. And for me, this became apparent when my kids were, so they were doing screens. We stopped doing screens. And after they stopped doing screens, I had to regulate a lot. But what I realized is, in the moments when I truly regulated and I met the need of, maybe they're feeling bored and they're needing a connection. Maybe they're needing, in some cases, like even just love and care and affection and all of the things. But if we can understand what our kid is needing, and for me, understanding that gave me a better understanding for myself, and it gave me the ability to help my child work through that faster. We weren't having as many meltdowns. It was like fully tending to one thing so that we didn't have another meltdown later. And maybe if we did start to have one, it was squashed pretty quickly because I was able to meet that next need. And so changing this mindset is really huge. And another part of this is, when we think of our child having a behavior and making us mad, let's look at them as our mirror. I love that I heard this from the Village podcast. They're the Village sessions, I think it's called, with Corey Malloy and Michelle Chatham. And I can't remember the other girl's name right now. Molly. can't remember her last name. Anyway, they were talking about mirroring and how our child is our mirror. And okay, of course I learned this in school, but hearing it in this way that they were sharing it, it made sense to me. It made sense to me that they are mirroring my inner world, my child being rambunctious, being very like, give me attention, was how I was feeling. That was my inner self. Their anger, their yelling, their rage, their frustration, their hitting, it was all my inner world just exploding out. And so that was a huge aha moment for me, understanding that my child was just a reflection of what was going on for me. And when we look at our child in that way, we're not going to feel frustrated with them. We're going to say, okay, I got to check this in here. I got to see what's going on. I've got to journal. I've got to do whatever I've got to do to heal this. So that way I can be there fully for my child and I can help them to learn how to work through this stuff in a healthy way, because I'm not doing it in a healthy way. And they are showing me that. And so that for me was just absolutely huge. Okay, the next thing, number 4. We need to unlearn the belief that motherhood is a burden, that it's tiring, that it's draining. This was me. I believed that motherhood was draining. I believed in specific that pregnancy was draining. I had 2 back-to-back pregnancies, and my first one took me a really long time to get pregnant, and I would say I was under eating, not purposefully, but I was very much in diet culture. And so that pregnancy was very stressful on my body. I had then founded the pro-metabolic way of eating, I guess, with Corey Malloy. I had taken her Freely Rooted course, which I'll link that below for you guys. But I found from there that I actually began to heal my body. Well, 2 months later, I got pregnant with my second, and my body was still stressed out. And so I had this belief that every time I have a baby, my body's going to be drained. Every time I'm nursing, my body's going to be drained. And instead, imagine if I look at it in the light of, no, this is going to heal me. Every process, every part of motherhood is going to heal me. So I started saying, I don't know if you call it a mantra, but I started saying this to myself. I started saying, motherhood is going to heal me. Pregnancy is going to heal me. Breastfeeding is going to heal me. And it has changed my perspective. It has changed the way I see motherhood. I feel so much less concerned about when the time does come and we decide to have more kids. Like, I'm not worried about my body being drained, because I have this mindset that it is going to be healing. And I really think this is just a simple mindset shift. I think this is just a simple understanding. And by the way, it's not simple. I'm saying simple. It's like simple in that, like, it's not something that is like super complex how am I trying to explain this? Like, we just need to go from having the mentality of motherhood is draining to motherhood is healing. But there's a lot of inner work and journaling that went through that for me. A lot of working with my therapist and with my parenting coach at the time to help me come to this understanding. And so that's what I do. That's what I do with coaching too. I'm helping right now. I'm helping a mom work through her feeling like her exhaustion and how tired she is because of her kids. And when we can come out of that and we can say, no, like, me being tired, that belief is just a belief. My kids are not the reason I'm tired. I am tired because I'm not getting enough sleep. But it's not my kid's fault, right? And I know you're here because I was here. I was here in the sleep one, okay? And as I'm coaching her through this, I'm like, I know this feeling. I know how deep rooted in myself it was blaming my kids. But there was actually something for me that I was avoiding. I was avoiding my marriage. I was avoiding time with my husband because at that time we had found out that my daughter had her heart defect, and we were going through all of that. And it was so hard for us to connect. We were so disconnected because there were bills, there were stresses, there were doctor's appointments, and we had just grown apart. And so in that season of our marriage, I was very much avoiding us. And so I found that my kids were then avoiding sleep so I could avoid him. And I know you're like, what? How does that even work? But I promise you, when I began to work through this avoidance, why am I avoiding him? Why? I want to be with him. I want to connect with him. I want to heal this part of our marriage. Why am I avoiding him? And it just became clear that there was fear, fear wrapped around it. And so I think this is all so interconnected. So coming to this place of I have this belief that motherhood is tiring, draining, it's a burden, all translates into motherhood is healing, like taking that and transforming it, I guess is a better word, into motherhood is healing, and believing into that. Journal around that. Journal around this one too, by the way. Journal around the fact that motherhood is a burden. Why do you feel that way? Why do you believe, it's draining? Is there something that you are avoiding? And then journaling into motherhood is healing. What that would look like, what it would feel like, and how you want to do that. So yeah, this is a big one to me. Man, this podcast episode is going to be very long today. I'm so sorry. We're only on number 5, but that's okay. This is good stuff. This is stuff that's going to do some really good inner work within you. Okay, number 5. We need to unlearn that we need to run to the internet, Google, the experts, the influencers, everybody else except for our own selves to know how to help our kids, how to be there for our kids. And that's why this channel, I think, I struggled in the beginning because I very much was doing like parenting stuff, like how to parent your kid. And that's not what I do like with my clients. I'm not like, oh, here, this is how you should parent this, or this is how you should say this. It's more of like, how do you want to show up as a mom? If you are rooted in being a kind, loving, empathetic, joyful, patient, desiring connection with your child, if that's the mother you want to be, what would that interaction look like between you and her? And really getting my, clients to think of that. And so when we're in this season though, if we're constantly running to other people, we're not going to know that. We're not going to know that deep rooted within ourselves. Like the best way to explain it is you can feel it in your gut. You can feel it like as deep as like your womb. You can just feel that you know what is best for your child. And those moments, like it, you feel it, it's there. And it's getting back in touch with that, getting back in tune with that. And so I think we need to unlearn the belief that Google knows it all, that the experts know it all, that all the influencers know it all, and really kind of take the noise and push it out and just allow ourselves to be here. And for me, this meant a lot of, again, journaling, a lot of time by myself and really thinking through like, okay, my daughter hit her head. Okay. Let's go through right now. I know the concussion protocol, so I'm going to start there. And then once I've gone through that, if I'm still feeling anxious, I'm going to call the doctor. And I'm going to go through this, and I'm going to really allow myself to trust innately. Like if you allow yourself, I should say, you can see within your child, you can just look in their eyes and know. You just do. We have it as a mom. We know that something's wrong or something's off. And then we can get the help by intuitively knowing where to go. But I can tell you 9 times out of 10, that's not Google. 9 times out of 10, most of the time it's going to be trusting ourselves and then going to the doctor, going, whatever, but most of the time it's not going to be calling the sleep expert, calling the nutritionist. There can be tools within those that are really, really helpful, but that's not going to get you to your innate belief and to your innate desire to intuitively trust yourself. Getting there could be the gateway, but I think that so often we are premature. And my example is with my youngest daughter. There was just something off, like after birth, and I kept saying to the doctor, something's off, what's wrong? I was Googling, I was doing all the things, but had I just looked at her in her one day oldness. And I saw her face, I saw her lips. And imagine if I just looked at her and I said, my gut is telling me right now, my gut, my intuition is telling me something is very wrong. I need to bring you to the hospital. Even though the midwife is telling me no, she's fine. There is something within me and I need to trust that. But I was embarrassed because I didn't want to go past the midwife's, expertise, and I didn't want to go past what my husband was saying was true. And, he was very much like, let's trust the midwife. And so I had this really awkward dance and I was very embarrassed by it. And then push comes to shove. And here we are a day later in the PICU with a huge heart issue. So I think that taught me that our intuition is so valuable. And we need to stop running to all of the experts immediately, right? You stop running to Google, especially, but start trusting ourselves first and letting that lead to where we need to go next. And trusting that, believing that whatever we're sensing in our gut is true. So, yeah, I hope that's helpful. Wish that's something somebody told me a long while ago. All right, let me get a drink real quick. The next thing that I think we need to unlearn is being busy, hurrying, being productive. I was addicted, and I still am at times, to being overly busy, being very productive. I come from a long line of people who were entrepreneurs. My whole family were entrepreneurs, self-employed, and they were always productive. I say productive. They were always busy trying to be productive. And so I had this ingrained belief system within myself that if I wasn't moving, if I wasn't doing something, I wasn't productive, which meant I was useless, right? I wasn't doing my job. I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. But imagine, which I love in the book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. This is one of my top 5 favorite books right now. I don't know if it'll be out by the time this is airing, but I have an entire video where I'm discussing my favorite books of 2025. I'll make sure to link it below when it is out. But I found myself reading this book and realizing that even Jesus didn't hurry. I mean, there were people on their deathbed and Jesus was going to heal them. But first he stopped off and he healed this person, and then he healed this person, and then he went there. And imagine the family members around the person who was on their deathbed. Imagine how frustrated with Jesus they must have been because he was not hurrying. But Jesus knew what was important to him. He slept. He spent time with God. He had room and time for connection, for just space for things to happen. And yes, no, he didn't have the internet. He didn't have cell phones. He didn't have all these distractions. But there were other things that he could have been distracted with. And instead, he focused his life, his days, on what was most important to him. And I think that we have just put so much emphasis and so much, I don't know, honestly, I think I idolized having a very productive life, being able to do it all, have it all, say it all, be it all the things, right? And honestly, it caused so much disconnection. And how this is going to make you happier, by the way, is you are going to have more time for connection with your kids. When your priority is connection in a moment of a tantrum, of misbehavior. Is that the way you say that? No. Yeah? Misbehavior? Yeah, I think so. When your child's not behaving, I think that we then will get through those moments like we were talking about earlier when our child is bad and believing that they're doing it just to make us mad. I think that we will get through that faster. I think that we will get on the other side of it and we'll have connection through it, and that's the huge part. And I want to have more room for what is important to me. And I can tell you that what's important to me is time with my kids, connection with my kids, loving my kids, being able to allow them to come up and show me a picture that they drew and get down on the ground and just look at it. I want to be able to pick them up and put them on the counter for just 10 seconds, look in their little eyes and say, oh, doll, I just love those pretty brown eyes. Gosh, you make my heart so happy. It doesn't take long, but gosh, if I'm in constant hurry and rush and go and go and go, I don't have time for that. So obviously, our lives can't be like totally unhurried and slow 24/7. Like, that's not life, right? But can we have pockets and moments, and can we structure our day in a way that we are prioritizing what's important and leaving everything else kind of to the wayside? So anyway, something to think about. I'm still working through this one, honestly. It's one that's been newer to me. Okay, number 7 is going to be, we need to unlearn the victim mentality, this martyr mentality. And this kind of goes along with the belief that I was talking about earlier. But I think that when we are stuck in the victim mentality, for myself, I was stuck in the victim mentality of, if something bad happens to me, people will give me the love and attention and affection that I am needing. That was the way I got that need met. And so are you staying stuck in that victim mentality to get a need met? And for me, the answer was yes. I also kind of had this martyrdom to motherhood. I felt like I had to be a martyr. You know, I had to self-sacrifice everything because that was being a good mom. But here's what was being a good mom. It was taking care of myself, my nervous system, my mental health. It was learning how to regulate so I could be there to regulate my kids. And that was honestly the most selfless thing I could do because it just made our home happier. It made everybody in our family happier, my husband happier. So I needed to focus there. That needed to be my focus. So if you are wanting to kind of dive into this victim mentality, I would start by journaling. Journaling is always the best place to start. It kind of helps you to get out everything that's in your mind if this felt really triggering for you. The next step from there is coaching. You know, I help moms to figure out why am I stuck in my victim mentality? And then how do I move forward in it? How do I get my needs that are unmet here? How do I get them met? And for me, like I said, it was that love, care, and affection. How do I get that met? So it's really interesting to look at it in that way. But I think that it will be helpful for you to just, I don't know, come to a better understanding of what's going on in your internal world when it comes to this victim mentality, because staying stuck in that is going to keep you unhappy. I mean, that is where a lot of anger and rage can come from, especially when we're in that martyr mentality. For me, there was so much rage that came from not being able to take care of myself and blame that I put on my kids when it was really a choice, which I'll talk about in a minute. Number 8, I think that we need to unlearn that anger is bad. I mentioned this earlier, but we need to stop doing anger is bad, and we need to look at this as a red flag. This is a red flag that something is going on within us. We need to sit with ourselves. We need to get help. You know, maybe it's a therapist. Maybe it is reaching out to, me as a parent coach. Maybe it's talking to your husband. Maybe it's talking to a friend. We need to understand that anger inside of us is telling us a much bigger story. And it's probably been suppressed and pushed down for a very long time. For me, it was suppressed for 20 years. Everything that I was feeling with my kids was this expression of what I couldn't express as a child. I was taught, as many of us were, that being angry was not okay. And it's not the anger that's the problem, it's the action. So I want to learn and then teach my children how to be angry in a healthy way, because there is a way to be angry in a healthy way. We just have to know how to do that. And if we don't know how to do that, then we are going to be unhappy and we're going to be constantly stuck in this anger, rage, shame, guilt cycle over and over and over again. And so to get unstuck from that, we have to first say, anger is not bad. The feeling is not bad. What's bad is that I don't know how to handle this. I don't know how to regulate myself. And that's where my calming tools come in. As I mentioned earlier, if you have not yet downloaded my free rage calming tools, this is an 8-minute video with 14 of my all-time favorite calming tools, which will help you to begin your rage journey. You can just comment rage below and I will send you the link. But with that being said, I just want moms to stop believing that anger is bad and just look at it as a warning sign. And that for me, just that simple little shift almost took all of the frustration that I had with myself, the expectation that I had that was so up here, that perfectionistic mindset, and it totally squashed it. And I found myself feeling joyful more often and able to get out of my ugly cycle and back into feeling more ease and joy and happiness and contentment faster. It was something that was just keeping me stuck. So I hope that this one helps. This one was a huge one for me. Okay, number 9, the very last thing that I want moms to unlearn. Please stop saying the phrase, I have to do this. I have to do that. I have to do the dishes. I have to make dinner. The truth is, it's a choice. It's a choice if you make dinner tonight. Gosh, you could ask your husband to make dinner. Yep, he'll get home at 8 o'clock at night. Yep, it probably won't taste very good. It probably will be cereal with milk. It probably won't be very nutritious. But the choice is there. And that for me was eye-opening. I don't have to do the dishes tonight. I am making the choice to do the dishes. I could ask my husband to do the dishes tonight. Yeah, he got home from work at 8 o'clock and he is going to be quite tired, but I don't have to do them. I'm putting myself in that martyr mentality again and my victim mentality. And that is just causing more and more frustration and rage. I learned this, the I have to, and no longer saying that, instead of saying like I choose to or I get to, through nonviolent communication. I found that this phrase of I have to was just holding me into that victim mentality. It was keeping me stuck in my belief that motherhood is draining and tiring when it didn't have to be. It didn't have to be tiring. It could be healing. It could be life-giving. It could be life-changing if I allowed it to be. And so making this one small shift, and I'm not even going to talk this long about this one because I think it is such a small shift that we can make. Truly believing and seeing, by the way, which is probably the biggest challenge of all, is like seeing the have to in that. Because when I at first was like, what? I have to make dinner. Who else is going to make it? Oh wait, my husband at 8 o'clock at night. But I'd be really hungry. My kids would be really hungry. So I'm going to choose to do it now, right? That simple mindset shift helped me to get out of the victim mentality, stop believing that I was drained because of motherhood and because of my kids, and actually choose to do something. And when you make a choice to do something, you're much more willing and happier to do it than feeling forced to do it. So anyway, that's going to wrap up today's episode. This was a much longer episode than usual, but I really did enjoy talking about all the things that I wish that we would unlearn in motherhood. If there is something that I did not mention here and you were like, gosh, I wish that we would unlearn this, please comment it below. If you have a friend that needs encouragement, would you please send her this video? And of course, if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And if you want to keep receiving more content like this to encourage you in your motherhood journey, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching and happy parenting.